First thing I think I want to say to y'all is that I don't want to make you guys think about things or see things the way that I see it. I'm here because I want you guys to see things. I want you to see the pain that I went through and what it caused me and what it costed me in my life. And I want you to see the victory that I had over it. And I'm going to take the liberty to share with you some of the personal pain that I've been through. I don't want you guys to judge me, but if you do, by the time you hear the rest of my story, I've been arrested over 41 times. I've been judged over 100, so it's not going to matter. I just want you to think about what I've been through. Some of the pain that's been caused in my life started at an early age. I went through sexual abuse from age 10 to 14 by one of my mother's longtime boyfriends. Later on, while I was in a penitentiary in Georgia, I found out for the first time in my life that it wasn't just me that was being molested in the home. It was also my older sister. I had a 5-year-old younger brother, lived in a housing complex. I was always told the story that he was on a roof, a 5-story roof of the housing complex playing when he fell over and died when he hit the ground. That's a story that I always grew up with. Later on, inside the penitentiary, Trenton State Prison, one of the high maximum security prisons in New Jersey, I got a 22-page letter from my mother. The letter said that she couldn't hold it in any longer after she'd been notified by a victim program that the guy that got convicted of actually throwing my brother off the roof actually just died inside the same prison that I was in. These are just some of the childhood traumas that I've been through. And the ways that I cope with them or mismanage them is what led me into the prison. The way that I mismanaged them was through drugs, through addiction, through violence. My first time I ever tried a hard drug, or what they call a hard drug, crack cocaine, I was 14 years old. I got it from my uncle, my own family, showed me how to do it and everything. The first time I took a drink of alcohol, I was 10 years old while my uncle bounced me on his knee. Those are the tools that I used to deal with my traumas and what I was going through. My first blackout on alcohol, I was 14 years old. My first time on trial in a courtroom, I was 15 years old. I won, but it stressed me out so much I never took another trial again. My stomach was bad, my nerves was bad. My childhood traumas affected me. Being molested, some people it affected, they grow up and molest another person. Some people go into depression and commit suicide. Me, it affected me differently. It made me violent. The short of it, it ticked me off. By the time I was 14 years old, when I was younger, I asked my uncle, I said, look, now I want to learn how to fight. He said, why? Somebody bothered me because you know me? I said, no, nobody bothered me. I just want to learn how to fight. From that point on, uncle, that's the only way I knew how to deal with things was through violence. Adversity meant adversary to me. If you presented me with any kind of conflict, posed any kind of threat to me, if you attempted to intimidate me, I engaged you violently. It didn't matter if you was a civilian, it didn't matter if you was a police officer, it didn't matter who you were. If you was a stop sign, I wanted to fight with you. Because apparently you standing there trying to tell me what to do. That's just the way that I grew up. The first time I went inside a penitentiary, I was 14, 15 years old, and I wasn't locked up there. I went there through a scared straight program. It was a scared straight, they're supposed to scare the young kids into not going back to prison. And I went through there and they tried to scare me. I was with a group of kids, they were howling, yelling, cussing, yeah, stay in line, take your shoes off, throw them in the pile, yada, yada, yada. I don't know what the rest of those kids saw on that trip, but I know what I seen. I saw an opportunity. I saw a chance to regain some things that I lost when I was a kid. The sense that I wasn't a man no more because of what happened to me as a child. And it wasn't that I was trying to fight for respect. I was trying to fight so that people wouldn't know that I was really a grown man but a hurt child both at the same time. When I left out of that penitentiary, before I left out of there was one person that really scared me. he made me nervous. I don't know if I could say scared, but he made me nervous. His name was Crazy Chris. He was a big, giant, biker, white dude. Arms like this here, tattoos all. I said, man, I don't want that cat to get a hold of me, man. He just made me nervous. He got up in my face, he would yell, he would scream, he would holler, he would call me punks. But one thing he said, yeah, any of you I ever see you back in this prison again, I'm going to make you my punk. I said, well, anyway, make a long story short, when we left out of that prison for that program, I was coming past the center, and there was this big giant cage there, and there was a dude inside the cage. He had the dreadlocks in his hair, tall dude, arms looked like boulders, tree trunks, and he was cussing out everybody, inmates, guards. He said he wanted to get his hands on the water, and I just looked. I said, man, ain't nobody gonna bother that dude, man. Nobody gonna touch him. Ain't nobody gonna do nothing to him. I said, man, by the time I left out of that prison, as sad as what I'm about to say is gonna sound to you, I knew I was gonna come back to prison. I was gonna come back to prison because that's where I was gonna make myself a man again. That's where I was gonna prove that what happened to me as a kid wasn't nothing but a hoax. It wasn't nothing but something that just happened because I was slipping on my game. I'm gonna get all mine back. I left out of that prison. I knew I was coming back. It was a lot of years later, but I came back to that prison. And one part of that story, I didn't tell the next class. I came back to that prison. I ran into Mr. Crazy Chris. Big giant white dude, ponytail, big arm. Well, by the time I bumped into him, I was 297 pounds. But I remember what he said to me. If he ever saw me back in the penitentiary, he'd make me a punk. I saw him over there in the weight room. We both in there living one. He was big on my arm was like this. I couldn't even fit him through the box. He was over there by the weight pile. I went over there and I went to grab the weights. I said, hey man, I said, now don't mind you now. He came back to prison because when he left out, he made parole. When he left out, he went straight home, killed his motorcycle buddy and his girlfriend because they both, they left him, did their thing. And I said, hey man, you remember me? He looked at me, he said, yeah, I remember you. I remember all the kids that come through the Scared Straight program that I couldn't get to. I said, yeah. He said, you back again, huh? I said, yeah. Ain't nobody gonna make no punk out of me. He looked at me, he said, nobody? I said, nah, nobody. Later on in my life, I realized what he meant when he said nobody. Because somebody was making a punk out of me. I was punking myself. I was abusing myself. I was dealing with my childhood traumas and everything that I went through by abusing myself in the penitentiary. The police was abusing me too every time they cracked my head open. The judge was abusing me too every time he sentenced me to twice as much time as he would anybody else. That's what he meant when he said nobody abusing you, nobody making no punk out you. My story of abusing myself goes through years and years of using drugs. I was on cocaine for most of the time that I was in the street. I was on alcohol, heroin. I kicked heroin habits that I seen brothers actually die trying to kick. I seen them die trying to keep it. I grew up on the streets. I learned how to read in prison. I learned how to write in prison. I learned how to speak in prison. I learned how to articulate myself in prison. I had better relationships with women inside prison than I did on the street. I had better relationships with my friends inside prison than I did on the street. I walked around the prison with more money in my pocket than I did on the street. I was institutionalized because that's where I grew up at. That's where I was from. Let me tell you the process that I went through to deinstitutionalize myself, to turn into a human being again like the way I was born, like the way I started out before I mismanaged the traumas that I was afflicted with. Always when I was in prison, I was always the jailhouse attorney. I knew everything. First thing I did in any prison was get the inmate handbook. I memorized it, frontwards and backwards. Not so I could follow the rules, but so I could manipulate them. The one statement that I used to always hear when I was in prison, I used to always argue I would debate everything. I would twist every rule and regulation to the point where it was beneficial to me, and I would even make it sound beneficial to me. I didn't go to prison to change. I went to prison to change the rules. Guards used to tell me, come on, listen, man. If you don't like it in prison, why don't you just not come back here? This is like your 4th time here, man. Why do you keep coming back? I never once thought about that statement. I never gave it 2 seconds consideration. I never thought about it for 1 iota. I always thought about my response to it, my argument to it, my debate to it. And sometimes I came up with some good ones too. I told one guy, I said, listen, I didn't come to prison. I was beaten, handcuffed, and drugged here against my will. Technically, I'm a hostage being held, and I want to go home. I made it all sound real good. Well, I was locked up in Atlanta. I was locked up in the Georgia penitentiary system. And Georgia penitentiary system, there is not too much debating of the rules, the regulations, and the policies there. Chances are, if you had a debate for the policy, about 6 or 7, maybe 8 of them will come to you with sticks, helmets, and shields and beat you until you're willing to be quiet and sit down somewhere and shut up. That was the bottom line. One day I tried to guard with my jailhouse attorney thesis, and I just tried him a little bit, see how far I could go. He was about 6'9", stomach was out to here. He had his white uniform top on, and they let you chew tobacco. The guards would chew tobacco, so he had the tobacco dripping from the corners of his mouth. The droppings was all over his white uniform shirt. He had a bottle of tobacco that he was spitting. He had a bottle of it in his back pocket. I went to him one day and I hit him with some of my theory on plausible living conditions of the jail, and the food was deplorable, unacceptable, unbalanced meals, etc., etc., etc. He looked at me. He said, he looked down at me. I said, he said, I'm listening to the way you talk, and I can tell by the way you talk. This here, it ain't your first rodeo. He said, now see, as you don't like it inside these penitentiary systems, why don't you just not come back? He said, some of you guys is no more better than a battered woman who just won't leave her no good man. He said, now, if you got something else to say after this, I'm just get on my radio, call your code, and we both know what's going to happen then, don't we, big man? I said, yeah. I don't know what it was about that time in my life, but I was not interested in being beaten in my head one more time. I said, well, either I can say something to him and take what I'm going to get, or I can sit on his bunk right here and think about what he said. I ain't got nothing else to do. I said, okay. I sat down on the bunk, and for the first time in my whole prison life, been confined or on some kind of supervision for over 20 years of my life. I sat down on the bunk and I thought about what that guard, I didn't think about the way he said it. I didn't think about why he said it or reasons he said it. I thought about what he just said. He said, man, if you don't like it here, just don't come back. And I thought of all the ramifications surrounding not coming back to prison, the possibilities that it held. For the first time, I said, man, well, if I never came back to prison, I never have to worry about the conditions that they got in here, the food, or when I'm going to go outside to the yard, or if I'm going to get a visit or not, if the parole board going to let me go. I ain't got to worry about when the next time somebody going to bust me in my head. I ain't got to walk around the prison with newspaper and ace bandages wrapped around my gut for when I get stabbed. I can still fight back. I ain't got to worry about when the police going to run down on me and start beating me in the head with sticks and find out something I done just did. I ain't got to worry about if I'm going to go to sleep in my bunk and just not wake up, and when they come, they're going to bury me inside the yard behind the prison and won't nobody pay no money to come get me and bury me in a nice funeral. I ain't got to worry about none of this stuff. I said, man, you ever see them cartoons where the cartoon character, he come up with a big bright idea and a light bulb come up over his head? That's the exact same thing came in. A big light bulb came up. I said, what? I said, man. I said, you know what? I ain't never coming back to prison. I'm going to avoid all this. I'm going to just step all outside all of this stuff. I don't want to come back to prison no more, but that wasn't enough. What you want in life just ain't enough. Because if I get caught on that street, them drugs sliding down my pants, that gun in my pants, that illegal stuff in my car, guess what? The police pull me over, he don't care what I want. I'm about to go back to jail. He don't care about nothing that my heart desires at that point. He about to do his job. Only thing that I had a pen and a piece of paper. I got the pen and the piece of paper, and I said, well, I was excited. I said, I'm going to write down everything that I need to do to set in place for myself that I never come back to prison. And as I started writing this stuff down, I said, man, I need another piece of paper. I started writing some more stuff down with another piece. I got a whole bunch of paper. I said, man, if I did all of this stuff, this would make me a good person. I'd be a good person. I said, man, shoot. Well, being a good person might not be a bad idea because not only would I be, good people don't go to jail. Good people don't go to prison. Good people don't respond to everything with violence. Good people don't use drugs. So now I went from not wanting to come back to prison and do the things that I need to do not to come back to prison. I went from that to working on being a good person, a decent person, a caring person, a loving person, despite of what happened to me when I was younger, despite of the things that I took myself through. I said, man, there's a lot of work here, man. And the one thing, the first step that I had to make, man, I ain't gonna tell you how difficult it was for me to make it. One of the very first things that I had to do, one of the very first things that I had to take out of my body was anger. Who else I'm gonna fight somebody, man? I ain't got no anger. Taking away one of the things that I loved the most all my life. But guess what? Had I not removed that anger, I'd be back in prison right now. My anger would have been a cause me to bust somebody's head up down to the white meat by now. I forced myself to take away from my person, my body, and my mentality things that was not conducive to me being a successful individual in this world. Had I not removed these things, and not only did I have to remove them, I had to replace them with some things. When I took anger out, I had to put joy back in them. I had to put compassion for people back in them. I had to put love in there for people. Not just love for people, but I had to love myself. All of these things started happening, and I'm going to tell you what happened. By the time I left prison, by the time they left me out there, now, when I started this process, I was 297 pounds. By the time they opened the gate for me to leave out of prison, I was 165 pounds. I was about this thing. Let me tell you why. Because I was serious about the process. They call weight room mountain. I love weight room. My pounds, I get lifting the weights, I get pumping iron, that's all I did. And when I got released, I was a big giant meathead. When I started my process, they called weight room out, and I was reading my Bible. I was working on some things that I needed to do for myself. If I was taking something out my body and I was dealing with that thing, I didn't go to weight room. Heck with it. I lift weights when I get out on the street. I'm going to be out there for the rest of my life. I'll wait till I get out there. Lift all the weights I want. If they call chow out, they had chicken or whatever they have. If I was still in my process, I was reading my Bible, I didn't go. I didn't eat. Heck with it. When I get out on the street, I eat steak, potatoes, shrimp, everything else. I wait till I go home. I'd like to walk out of that prison shriveled up like a raisin. But you know what? I was filthy rich because I looked back at that penitentiary. I would never go back in there one of them. And everybody else knew it too. When I used to leave the prison back in my day, I used to go in the county jails. I go to Rikers Island. I go to Trenton prison. I go to prison. When I leave out, they say, yeah, I'll see you when you come back, bud. I said, yeah, I'll see you when you come back. They said, yeah, let somebody know when you come in the gate, man. I get you your old job back, your old bunk, everything. I was serious. I didn't think it was a joke. I said, yeah, I'll let somebody know. One of them told me, he said, look, man, it turned into a joke. He said, yeah, man, when you leave out, and you get a visitor while you're gone, I just tell them to wait over here on the side until you get back. But when I left out of the penitentiary this time, the guards, this 5 years ago, the guards used to come to my door. They said, come on, you leaving, huh? I said, yeah. They said, hey, man, let me open your flap. I want to shake your hand, man. I know I'm never going to see you again. I said, what? Hey, what made you say that? I said, man, I've been doing this for 25 years, man. I know the guys that I'm going to see again, the guys that I'm not. Hey, you be safe out there, man. Send some pictures to somebody. And I just said to myself, wow, man, was he serious? That right there just gave me the confidence in knowing that not only did I know I wasn't going to come back to prison, but everybody knew it too. But that wasn't the start of something easy. It wasn't easy for me. And it still ain't easy. But ain't nothing harder than being in the penitentiary. And when I say it ain't easy, man, I mean it ain't easy. When I got released from prison, I went straight to a homeless shelter. I didn't have nothing. I had nothing but the tan uniform that they released me with. But you know what I did have? I had desire. I had motivation. I had drive. I was going to do the right thing no matter what. I was going to be a good person no matter what. I wouldn't care if I was a good person, flat, broken, homeless. I was going to be a good person. Jesus was homeless. He had no place to live. By the way, I'm Christian, and I ain't going to try to hide that. Jesus was homeless. He had no place to live. Sometimes he was hungry. But he still did what was right. Still got persecuted for it. Things wasn't easy for me. I remember one time, I'll tell you a short story. I had went and I had got me a room because I moved from the shelter to a rooming house. When I moved into the rooming house, I had a temporary job. And a temporary job basis used to go get some work, and I had enough money to pay my rent. What a temporary job basis apparently found somebody a little bit hard working than me. They stopped sending me out so much. So now I'm going to find some work. So I had a highway. I said, I'm going to walk up this highway right here. By the time I get to the other end of this highway, I'm going to have me a job. So I had me a little soda bottle. I would go inside the fast food restaurants, fill me up some water. And this is Georgia. It was 90 degrees in the shade. The pollen piled up on the ground, yellow. I said, I'm getting me a job. I walked straight up that highway, man. Get my some water. I had walked about 3.5 hours. Ain't got no job. I went, I was hot, I was sweating, I was hungry, I was starving. I said, well, I'm going to get me a job. I went inside the one restaurant and I came back out. I said, man, I'm going to go ahead and head back home and I'm going to have to cross the street and check the other store. When I came back out, I was so hungry, I was so delirious, I was so tired, my feet were so swollen, my leg was so... I said, man, I'm going to head back. I was so delirious, I kept heading out the highway instead of heading back in the direction where I lived. I didn't even know it until after I walked 2 more hours and I saw a sign that said I was entering to another county. I said, man, oh my God. I turned around and I started walking back down the highway. When I got back to where I lived, I didn't have no money, I didn't have no job. The landlord was standing on the steps right there in front of my door. I was so tired, I was actually holding on to the side of the building because I couldn't walk. I was about to fall out. When I climbed up to the top of the stairs, I know he got tired standing there waiting because I was holding the rail. I climbed up the stairs, legs were swollen, feet were swollen. When I got to the top of the rail, he said, hey, listen, man, do you have the rent money? I said, no. He said, look, we don't carry balances here, man. If you don't have the rent money, you have to go. I said, yeah, I have my things out in the morning. The next morning, I moved back into a homeless shelter. Things wasn't easy for me. But you know what made it right? I know how to fight adversity today. I don't fight adversity through violence now. I don't fight adversity through abusing myself anymore. I fight adversity properly, professionally, and in a way that's conducive to the rules, regulations of society. I don't fist fight no more. I don't argue and debate no more. And I still face adversity from people in the workplace. I face adversity from people in social arenas, professional arenas. But today, I only fight worthy opponents. I don't just fight anybody. If you got a problem with who I am, where I've been, my past, my history, oh, who Al think he is? Didn't he used to be homeless? Who you think he is walking through here with? So who you think he is? Guess what? You are not a worthy adversary. You ain't worth my time. You ain't worth no. You fighting over nothing. Oh, who does he think he is? He think he's some type of professional. Didn't he used to be in the penitentiary? Ain't he an ex-con or something? He didn't be locked up. Guess what? You are not a worthy opponent to me. Matter of fact, I don't even think you're too bright. Oh, if you look at me and you say, you know what? That guy right there, I think he's this, or I think he's so-and-so, or I think he's that. You're not a worthy opponent for me, and I don't know, what type of confrontation you're trying to get, but I'm not going to fight you no kind of way, much less a fist fight. I don't think you're too professional. I don't think you're too educated. I don't think you have a really good world view. I don't think I'm going to come in contact with you professionally in no other kind of way. only fight battles that's worthy of my confrontation. Now, if you stand in my way of my future and me become successful, then me and you, we getting ready to lock horns like two rams on a hill cliff. You can take my wallet from me. You can take my job. You can go inside my house and burglarize my home. You can steal my car, my driveway. I might let you get away with punching me square in the face. I might. That's just a risk person gonna have to take. But I ain't gonna let nobody take my happiness under no circumstances and no condition. At some point, that's where I draw the line. I'm gonna be happy, I'm gonna be joyful, and I'm gonna be at peace, irregardless of what anybody in this world has to think about me or has to say about me. And I'm gonna tell you something, they say some stuff about me, they say some stuff about me, I done burned my ears off. I done been accused of everything from being an undercover crackhead to a petty thief. Guess what? Don't bother me. Anybody problem in this world, you can have it. I am not holding my pocket open accepting no donations of nobody else's problems. I got situations of my own that has to be dealt with. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut it short. And I'm going to take any question. I'm going to let you know. Don't ask me no question you don't want to know the truthful answer to. I know y'all got some questions, but I smell a whole lot of wood burning in here. Come on with it, man. Come on with it, man. What's going on with you, man?
True. That was niceness right there.
All right.
First, I ain't got no question, but I am gonna say that you need to network with some organizations so you can go inside prisons and speak this around the U.S. Plus, go inside community centers within, what they consider lower economical status places and all this type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because what you have to say affects many people, and if they hear it from you, a person who experienced it, a person who rose above it, and like you say, you still going through struggle, but you still holding firm. You see what I'm saying? So they need to hear these type things from these type of people. You see what I'm saying? So they can maybe make changes in their life.
I agree with you 100%. You just touched on something that I'm doing right now. I'm dealing with invitations to penitentiaries, jails. I've been to halfway houses, transitional centers. I spoke at churches. So we both on the same page. We got both identified some things and some situations that need to be addressed in the community. And I'm branching out. I'm doing that now.
True.
But thanks for that vote of confidence. I know you sitting there with a question you had since I walked in the room. Come on.
Me?
Yeah, I can smell the wood burning. Come on with it now.
I don't have a question.
All right. Come on. Who else got a question?
Come on, any questions now? Don't let Al scare
Don't
you.
none of y'all look like you ever been in prison before. No, none of y'all look or smell like you used to be homeless. Ain't the profile. You look here, I know y'all got questions on adversity. Everybody in this room faced adversity. Might not have been my particular adversity, but everybody in this room has faced adversity or knows somebody who has faced adversity and faced a victory over it or looking for a victory over it. I ain't never been scared the day before in my life too tough. And I ain't looking at too many scared faces in this room either. Einstein asked questions. Ain't no Einsteins in here. Come on.
Well, I know you said you were going through your struggle, but did you have anyone to lean on and help you through this?
I leaned on Jesus Christ. I leaned on my rock. And let me tell you how. When I was inside the homeless shelter, I used to be the first one up in the morning. Be at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got a lot of complaints about that, getting up 4 o'clock in the morning. But I used to get up 4 o'clock in the morning. I used to go to wherever it was light at, and I used to read my Bible. And I used to always read the Bible since I was a young kid. But I used to read it for different reasons. I used to read it to tear it down, not build myself up. When I started reading the Bible for the first time in my life, I realized while I was reading the Bible, I realized Jesus was homeless. He was in prison. He even got executed in prison. They lied on the man, called him all kind of stuff. Called him a demon, the devil, did all kind of stuff to him, spat on him, everything. I said, man, I didn't know me and Jesus had that much in common, man. I didn't feel so bad about my situation of being homeless. I leaned on Jesus because he was my rock. I read Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. When a great man like Jesus Christ was homeless, just like I was, I didn't feel so bad about it, but I still wasn't going to lie down for it. Because the truth of the matter was, I ain't Jesus. Anybody got a question? Come on, man.
Are you guys know
How do you guys know each other?
Is that the second time we got that question? I met Miss Rizzy in a very special place to me and to her, the YMCA, Greater Richmond. I became involved in the YMCA through a program called Keep It Moving. I was homeless. I was broke. I had no place to live. I had nothing. Everything that I had was inside a locker at the YMCA. And when I came into the program, Keep It Moving, it was a free program sponsored specifically for the homeless. And I met a lot of friends in there, a lot of good people. Doctors, police officers, lawyers, ministers. I even met Miss Rizzy there. We would meet at the table, talk. I go through some things, I come to her, she go through some things, and come to me, and next thing you know, after proper negotiation, we became friends. We became really good friends. And she's not the only friend that I got in the YMCA. It's the Mark Willis at the back of the room. One of the friends that I made at the YMCA. Good people. See, before my friends, we was drug dealers. We stick up kids. We drug users. We get high together. But when you turn things around, guess what? I never had no problem getting rid of my old friends. When I turned my life around, my old friends got rid of me. I said, man, ain't no sense in bothering with that son of a gun, man. You don't smoke crack, you don't sell crack, you don't wash no booze down, you don't do nothing out for you. It's a waste of time. But then when you get rid of something, you replace it with something. You replace it around, surrounded by good people, good friends. And it's not like that, it's about your friends when they handle your money, it's this and that. But good friends, they give you expensive advice. They give you expensive counsel. They give you expensive consultation. Anybody else got a question? Come on with it.
I know you said the first thing you had to do was get rid of your anger. How did you do that?
That was the word. That thing was ugly. That thing was ugly. And I'm going to tell you how, when I realized I finally got rid of it too, the anger that kindles the violence, et cetera, et cetera. When I dealt with my anger, I couldn't do it all alone. And I'm going to share a real personal moment with you with my anger. When I was in prison, I got this process thing together, and one of the things I had to take out of me with anger, I said, man, that's an ugly thing that I really don't want to get rid of, and that makes it even more ugly. I fell down on my knees, and I asked God to help me. I said, please, man, some things I just can't do on my own. I said, you got to help me with this thing. And another thing that helped me get rid of anger was volunteering. Volunteering gave me an avenue to gain some things other than anger. It gave me compassion. It gave me an incentive to care about somebody else other than myself. Because my anger was a fact that I used to care about myself. I only cared about what I felt and what I wanted to do with what I felt. What I wanted. I didn't care if my anger caused me to do something to this person. I didn't care if my anger caused me to do something to that person's property. I didn't care what damage that my anger caused. And let me tell you when I found out the day that I got rid of my anger, that I just didn't tell you on quick, because I think it's going to do more good than hurt my ego. I was in the penitentiary and I was working on that process that I had, this thing about not coming back to prison and all. Be honest with you, I had a little reputation for myself. Guys ain't want to fight me, ain't want to do nothing to me, ain't want to try to do too much with me. There was a young guy come inside the penitentiary. He looked for a reputation for himself, He looked at me and said, yeah, I can get it from him. It looked like he losing a little bit, losing weight and losing that old macho thing going on. I might be able to get it out of him, And he did. He picked something with me. He said something to me. I said, oh, brother. I don't fight nobody no more, man. I turned around, I headed to my cell. I went to my cell, I went to close the door behind me, he had a foot in the door. I said, you move your foot out of my door? He took his fist, punched me right in my nose. Bam! I said, oh, man. I said, you about done, man? He said, yeah, I'm done, punk. I said, he moved his foot and I closed my door. I sat down on my bunk. I said, yeah, that thing gone. I said, that thing gone. Because if it it wasn't gone, I'd have had that young boy, I'd have had him airlifted out of prison by a medevac, which he did anyway, because the rest of the guys found out he had punched me in my nose, so I had to do it anyway. But I didn't do it. That's my point, I didn't do it. My anger at that point, I knew was gone. Anybody else got a question?
You were right at 11:50. So
All right.